Okay, first and foremost, I would like to say all praises be to the Most High Ahaya. In the name of Yeshua, giving us another opportunity to teach this Sabbath. The name of this lesson will be called Egypt. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow, or we can call it Egypt, the past, present, and future. And we need to go into this lesson in lieu of what's going on in Egypt today. I know everyone have heard about what's going on with the so-called Democratic elected President Morsi, who was placed over Egypt by the Western world. You're going to find out today why, and how this guy who was put in place under the Muslim Brotherhood was ousted by his people. Now, there's two things that brothers and sisters should recognize. Number one is the fact that the Egyptian people have enough power to stand together against tyrannical spirits and those that would rule them unlawfully and move them out of the way. Now, that's a serious sign in the earth, especially to those in America who feel they're free. If you have someone that's acting unruly or operating outside of the interests of the people, no one in the Western world have the power to move the leaders of their government. So that's telling us that the Egyptians are stronger than the Western world would let on. Usually, if a country don't follow suit and operate under the orders of the bankers and the Zionist agenda, usually you send in your troops, wipe the people out, set up your democracy, set up your churches, and enslave the people under your imperialistic ideology. But why can't they do that in Egypt? You're going to find out today. Also, you should ask yourself a question. In lieu of this, of them ousting this president of the Muslim Brotherhood, or president of Egypt, which is not, who really wasn't chosen by Egypt at all, but chosen through Hillary Clinton and that administration. We all know that Hillary Clinton and others went over there under the orders of the so-called New World Order or the Zionist regime to set up a power to bring in the New World Order, and they needed to be able to suppress Egypt. Now, while they can't control Egypt, they were looking to at least to suppress it. Why they can't control it? A lot of you might not know history because they would never promote this throughout the United States and the Western world, is that really the only war Israel ever lost was against Egypt. Okay? There's too many people, they have nuclear capability, and there's another spirit operating there outside of Islam that you will never understand. And we're going to go into that. So the question is, what does this mean concerning Morsi being ousted? Does the Bible speaks of anything concerning this? Does this connect to the coming of Christ? You're going to find out everything you need to know about Egypt according to the Bible today, of why it's such an international story every time something happens there. But we're so disconnected, especially through entertainment and the Western world's distractions. We're too detached to understand how important Egypt is concerning Bible prophecy. If a lot of us understood what was going there, the majority of the earth would not only become believers, they would follow Christ. Okay. Why do the Western world want Egypt under a Muslim Brotherhood? The reason why is because Muslims and the whole Muslim creation came from the Catholic Church. It's actually a Roman control over the Arab countries. Ishmael, which is one of the sons of Abraham. Ishmael is the key, I would say, focal point in the Middle East that's controlled by the Romans. They are in an alliance with Esau or the Romans to control that region. Now, you remember last week I went into Mount Hermon and the power of those regions, and I showed part of Egypt as the original landmass that belonged to God's people. Now, you're going to have the biblical proof to know today that Egypt also belonged to us. All right? It belonged to us before there was any such thing or any such person as Ham, any such name as Egypt. You're going to find out what's really going on with the pyramid today. You're also going to find out how all this culminates with the coming of Christ and also our people retaining the land that was promised to us through our God Ahia. And we're going to show you that that landmass will be restored back to its rightful owners shortly. And that's what this is all about. As the Most High is awakening his people, and his people are waking up out of their captive brainwashing. Now that we realize we are not Gentiles anymore, we know that we're Israel. The whole earth is in an uproar. Why? Because there's a turning that will lead to God's people getting their land. The earth is preparing herself for her children. So that upheaval that's going on all over the Middle East, it's to make room for us. So that's what it's really about. Now, Barack Obama and the Western world will do everything they can to suppress this. And we're going to show you why. But before we do that, let's go back to the beginning to prove to you that Egypt in the beginning was actually part of the garden, part of the land that was given to the chosen of the Most High, Adam, our father. And Adam is the father of what we call the sons of God within the earth, of the lineage that would one day receive the garden again. Let's go to Genesis 2, and let's get a geographical location.
Oh, this is Genesis.
Start at 10.
Genesis chapter 2, verse 10.
Go ahead.
And a river went out of Eden to water the garden.
Go ahead.
And from thence it was parted, and became into four heads. Verse 11. The name of the first is Pison. That is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium and the onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. Verse 14. The name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates.
The fourth river is what?
Euphrates.
Go ahead.
Verse 15. And the Most High Power took the man and put him into the garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it.
Now, when you look at those four rivers, I have a diagram that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt those four rivers compasses northern Africa or Egypt. All right. Okay. So that landmass even before the flood belonged to Adam. So the chosen of Adam would one day possess the garden or the areas of the garden again under the commands of the Creator. Now, as you can see, you got Ethiopia there. That was before those areas were inhabited by Adam and his children before there was any such thing as Cushites under Ham, or what you would call modern day Ethiopians. Now, when the Ethiopians talk about the original landmass was part of the garden in Ethiopia, when they speak of this and what you would call Haile Selassie type doctrine, they are correct. If you're looking at pre-flood, the mistake they make is that they try to attribute that to after the flood and what happened with the Hamites in that area. And then they tried to attribute Ethiopia to the sons of Ham in Ethiopia and Haile Selassie in Ethiopia, when that landmass belonged to the sons of God before there was any such name as Ethiopia. It was part of the region of the Garden of Eden. Okay? Now, we're going to start pre-flood, because something happened before the flood that caused the Most High to become angry at the wickedness in the earth, and that led to a great flood. We're going to go there first because something happened in that area of Egypt before the flood. I'm going to show you the reason why all the historians that are set up in the Western world lie concerning Egypt, and how they try to attribute history to Europeans opposed to black people. And I'm going to show you also the time in history in which they began to lie on the black people who ruled Egypt. Let's go to Genesis 6.
Genesis chapter 6.
This is pre-flood.
Genesis chapter 6, verse 1.
And I'm bringing this out there because you will find much history on the pyramids. You'll find much history on, and with some true information. But there's still a disconnect because no one wants to identify the fact that we were the people that made Egypt great. The same black people that built America. Now, I know we hate to make this a black and white thing, but guess what? It usually comes down to that. Let's go to Genesis 6.
Genesis chapter 6, verse 1.
Go ahead.
And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them,
Go ahead.
that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. Verse 4. There were giants in the earth in those days.
There were giants in the earth in those days.
And also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old,
Go ahead.
men of renown.
Men of renown, which they call in Greek mythology titans, sons of fallen angels. That actually happened. That's not a myth. Okay? These inordinate skulls they find don't have anything to do with Neanderthal and all that other stuff science used to hide the fact that giants once ruled in this earth. So they came up with the science terms to make you believe that man started off big and then turned small through evolution. That's total rubbish. That's garbage. So they use science to explain off the things that one would normally find in the earth and relate it to the Bible. So when you see these inordinate skulls that they find, these inordinate bones, the animals that was cross-spliced like dinosaurs, here's the time period. It's not 1,000,000 years ago. The time period was right during the time of Enoch, the seventh from Adam. Okay? So the Most High raised himself a prophet in those days, named by the name of Noah, to prophesy against the wickedness that was being done in the earth. And also, he translated Enoch to the heavens to send a message to the ministers who were supposed to be ministering to men, the fallen angels that sinned against the Most High. And that's why Enoch was sent to the heavens, to come back and tell those angels what would happen to them for their disobedience in teaching mankind evil and sin. So that's why the Most High had to destroy the earth through water. If not, the satanic creation and the wickedness taught by the fallen angels would have destroyed all of the Most High's creation. Read.
Verse 5. And the Most High saw the wickedness of man, that the wickedness of man was great in the earth,
Go ahead.
and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually.
Go ahead.
And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth,
Go ahead.
and it grieved him at his heart. And the Most High said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and creeping things, and the fowls of the air.
Go ahead.
For it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Verse 9. These are the generations of Noah.
Hold up, before I go there. Before I go there, let me clear something up that was out there before. Concerning how the giants reprocreated on the other side of the flood. Before I go there. Let's get it in Numbers. We'll tell you this one, he was the remnant of the giants. Deuteronomy 3 and 11, that's what I need. And then go back to Genesis. The 6th chapter.
Deuteronomy chapter 3 verse 11.
Go ahead.
For only Og, king of Bashan,
Only Og, king of Bashan,
remained of the remnant of the giants.
remain of the remnant of the giants. Og lived so long even after the flood that Moses killed Og. So he was the only one that remained of the remnant of the giants. So this destroys any philosophy that's out there that's claiming that Ham's wife could have been Nephilim or could have been brought a child on that would be a giant on the other side of the flood. Og was one of the remnants that lived through the flood. Now, there's much legend on probably how he got to the other side, but nonetheless, we know he got to the other side because he's a remnant of the giants that were created or were born before the flood. See that? So Og eventually had children with one of Ham's daughters. And on and on and on. That's how they began the giants on the other side of the flood. You got that? Let's go back to Genesis 6.
Genesis chapter 6 verse 10.
Go ahead.
We'll start at verse 9. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generation. And Noah walked with the Most High. And Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Go ahead.
Verse 11. The earth also was corrupt before the Most High, and the earth was filled with violence. And the Most High looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And the Most High said unto Noah, The end of all flesh is come before me. The earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth.
And that lets us know that usually throughout time, when you look in the Bible, there's always a threshold in which the Most High judges the earth. And as you can see, we're very close to a judgment. The wickedness have exceeded the time before the flood. So you know the time is near. where you're being overran by what they call homosexuals, which the Bible calls sodomites, hermaphrodites, satanic freaks over our sister. This happened before, and and the Most High have suffered in that land, SLUFUR, in the land of Sodom and Gomorrah, as a testament to our modern day society to know that it really happened. He destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah before. Okay? But let's go back, because the reason I'm going here is, while Noah was dealing with what he's dealing with, right before that, the Most High called Enoch and told Enoch of the judgment of these angels. And you would never guess the region the main angel was buried in. You got it. One of the pinnacles or temples that was before the flood, because Enoch lived in the Egypt region. The area was Egypt. And Enoch was the priest. See? So now we're starting to understand why everything is culminating around Egypt. Something big is about to happen. We're going to show you what it is. So let's see. Evil is taught in the earth. The prophet is prophesying on the people, telling them to prepare themselves away before the destruction comes. Noah is about to build the ark. And Enoch, the righteous of the Most High, right before that, gets a judgment for these fallen angels. Let's go. Let's go to the book of Enoch real quick. And for those who don't believe in the book of Enoch, the book of Jude speaks of Enoch. It also speaks of a passage taken from the book of Enoch, which means the disciples under Christ knew of the judgment of the fallen angels. Why? They had the record we are about to read now. Okay? Let's get that about in the desert.
This is Enoch, chapter 10. I'll start at verse 1.
Go ahead.
Then said the Most High, the Holy and Great One spake, and sent Uriel to the son of Lamech, and said to him, Go to Noah, and tell him in my name, hide thyself.
So now, he says, go tell Noah to hide himself. Read.
And reveal to him the end that is approaching.
Go ahead.
That the whole earth will be destroyed, and a deluge is about to come upon the whole earth, and will destroy all that is on it. And now instruct him that he may escape, and his seed may be preserved for all the generations of the world. And again.
So that tells you that Israel, the seeds of Noah, will make it to the end, even though the elite powers are trying to stop it. Read.
And again, the Most High said to Raphael, bind Azazel, hand and foot.
Bind Azazel, hand and foot.
And cast him into the darkness.
Into the darkness.
And make him an opening in the desert.
Make him an opening in the desert.
Which is in Dudiel.
Which is in Dudiel.
And cast him therein.
And do what?
And place upon him rough and jagged rocks.
And place upon him rough and jagged rocks.
And cover him with darkness.
And cover him with darkness. I need that book, that Egypt book real quick. Yeah. Go ahead. No, just give me that book there. Yes. Read it.
It says, and cover him with darkness.
Go ahead.
And let him abide there forever.
And let him abide there forever. The desert Dudiel is Egypt. The place where Azazel was bound is under the Great Pyramid Giza. So the historians lied to you and said that the Israelites built that particular pyramid during the time of Ramesses. They lied, and I'm going to prove that too. And even some of the greatest archaeologists who've done the research, they've tried to silence these archaeologists and these historians, these anthropologists, that found that you can see where the water was receding from a flood off of the pyramid Giza, to show you that even though the other pyramids were later, Pyramid Giza was pre-flood. So if you want to know who built it, the angels built it. It's angel technology, and that's why you can never build another construct like that again in the earth. You can't even put a razor blade between two rocks. There's no machine created or can be created that can mimic the construct of the pyramids. They have tried it. So if you want to know how it was built, angels built it. The celestial built it. Why? To judge fallen angels. You needed angel technology to fight against the fallen angels. Now, it says a rock was slid in place. Now here's a diagram from the lost scriptures of Giza. Now, while I don't ascribe to all the information in the book, there's some key information concerning prophecy and what they found out about the pyramids, how it's actually a prophecy timeline. Even when Christ would come into the earth, the judgment, the whole nine. And that's why the elite powers are looking closely at the pyramid, because it lets them know how long they have, and they can plan accordingly to see if they're on schedule. Now, at the bottom of the pyramid, there's a rock that's put in place near the bottom that no one can move. They've tried and can't move. Who's at the bottom of there? When you go down there at the bottom of the pyramid, Azazel, whom the Egyptians called as a god, or Osiris. You will only know this information if you know the Bible and know Enoch. And they will never teach this in the churches. Why? Because if you find these things out, you'll come to understand that Azazel or Osiris is the same gods the Romans worship. The Roman Catholics who bought you your Christianity, they've tricked you into following the fallen angels. So they'll never show you this. When the Catholics burn candles in their church, they're burning candles to the same fallen gods. Also, some of these children of the fallen angels became freaks, hermaphrodites, having both male and female organs, like the Baphomet. And that's why everything in the earth is being switched to unisex now. Okay, transsexual, transgender. That's the spirit of Satan. That's what he created before the flood. That's what the Most High destroyed before. See? So it tells you that the Most High did a judgment against Azazel and planted him in the desert. And I'm going to show you how this is prominent in future prophecy and what we're dealing with today also concerning the so-called revolutions. Okay? So that's before the flood. Let's see what happened after the flood. Is there a spiritual connection in that same region after the flood? Let's go into the Bible. Let's go to Genesis 12 and 10. Genesis 12 and 10.
Genesis chapter 12, verse 10.
Go ahead.
And there was a famine in the land.
There was a famine in the land.
And Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there.
Go ahead.
For the famine was grievous in the land.
So we know that our father Abram, who was a Hebrew, let's make sure we get that clear for brothers and sisters, because they would like to give Abram another name. Oh, he was a Chaldean. Yeah, he was amongst the Chaldeans. He was in the land of the Chaldeans, but that doesn't make him a Chaldean. There's no such thing as a Chaldean race. Okay? Yes, he was in the land of Chaldea, but he was a Hebrew. Let's get that. Genesis 14 and 13. Read that.
Genesis chapter 14, verse 13. And there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew.
Abram the who?
Abram the Hebrew.
Abram the Hebrew. So at one time, and it doesn't mean one that passed over either. It means from the past. What came from the past? The language, which was split after the flood. Okay, after the flood, then you had after the Tower of Babel was split under the Peleg, the language Eber was passed down to Abram. That's the bloodline of Adam, whom Egypt belonged to. Before anything, before the flood, before all those things, that region, that northern region of Egypt, all the way to where the pyramid is, even the lands around the Mediterranean, all that, a matter of fact, a lot of you didn't know this, Alexandria, whom they named Alexandria after Alexander the Greek, before that, it was called the land of Goshen. That was our land. We're going to show you. We're going to show you. Hold up, before I go there, because I have to clear up something. For years, just mimicking some of the things that were said, or parroting some of the things what was said, we would make a statement that Ham was named after a conqueror, Leo Scipius Africanus. Well, guess what? We stand corrected. Let's get that out of Josephus real quick. Why is Africa called Ham? Why is it called Africa, or the land of Ham? Why is it called Africa? For years, we tried to equate it to Leo Scipius Africanus, but we found some research that gave us more proof that that whole landmass of Africa belongs or is promised to the sons of Abraham. It have nothing to do with Ham at all. Read it.
This is the book of Josephus, book 1, chapter 15.
Read it.
It says, Abraham after this married Keturah, by whom 6 sons were born to him, men of courage and of sagacious minds, Zambram and Jazar and Madun and Madian and Josabak and Sus. Now the sons of Sus were Sabbathon and the Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were Lapis.
That Sus is S-O-U-S. I just want to make that clear before someone think he named his son Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be clear, because usually things are clicking. People are attentive. You have to make sure you make things like that clear, so they'll know they ain't speaking of Zeus, the god.
That's Zeus. That's S-O-U-S.
Thank you. Read.
It says, the sons of Dedan were Latizim and Asor and Loum. The sons of Madian were Ephes and Ophran and Anak and Ebedus and Eldis. Now for all the sons and grandsons, Abraham contrived to settle them in colonies, and they took possession of Troglodytis and the country of Arabia the Happy, as far as it reaches to the Red Sea. It is related of this Ophran that he made war against Libya and took it, and that his grandchildren, when they inhabited it, called it from his name Africa.
See that? Africa was named after the sons of Abraham. This was before there was any such thing as Leo Scipius Africanus. Major breakthrough. Major breakthrough. So all of Africa is Israel, except the northern regions that was given to Ham after the flood. See? Now you understand why Barak is now behind the African Union. We're going to talk about that too. Now you see why Africa is so prominent in prophecy. Now you understand why they needed a black man at the very end to rule. So that it'll seem as if someone is in league with black people, but really his mission is to help destroy them. We're going to go there. It's all part of this lesson. It's Bible prophecy. That land belongs to the children of Israel. Okay? Your historians and your colleges will never show you this. They tried to relate all of Africa to the sons of Ham and say they're black people and not Shem. They are liars. A matter of fact, Hamites, which is the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and the Canaanites, even though a lot of them were dark-skinned, they didn't even look as dark as the Hebrews. Their hair wasn't as kinky or curly as the Hebrews. You go and you find a Nubian in Egypt. I haven't seen them myself. A lot of them who are from the ancient Egypt, their families. And they're dark, but they have stringy hair. Not permed hair. Their hair is naturally, even though they're dark skinned, they have very fine hair.
Mm-hmm.
So they made you believe that looking like we look in America, children of slaves, they made you believe that that was the look for Ham. You see how they turned everything upside down? But let's get back on course. We have a lot to cover here. Let's go to after the flood and go into Josephus with Abraham and show brothers, because we're leaving from Genesis 12 and 10, and we're going to show brothers and sisters out there. What did Abraham teach the Hamitic Egyptians when he went into Egypt? Read.
This is the Antiquities of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 8, Paragraph 2.
Go ahead.
For whereas the Egyptians were formerly addicted to different customs and despised one another's sacred and accustomed rites, and were very angry one with another on that account, Abram conferred with each of them, and confuting the reasonings they made use of, every one for their own practices, demonstrated that such reasonings were vain and void of truth, whereupon he was admired by them in those conferences as a very wise man.
Go ahead.
And one of great sagacity. And when he discoursed on any subject,
when Abram, our father, discoursed on any topic or subject,
he undertook, and this not only in understanding it, but in persuading other men also to assent to him.
Read.
He communicated to them arithmetic.
This is what he communicated to the Egyptians. Arithmetic.
And delivered to them the science of astronomy.
The science of astronomy.
For before Abram came into Egypt,
before Abraham came into Egypt,
they were unacquainted with those parts of learning.
They were unacquainted with those parts of learning. So when it comes down to surgery and all the tools to be able to work on the body and do certain things, that was all taught by Abram. See? Why? Because Abram received the knowledge of the book of medicines that came down from his father Noah. See? They try to give all the credit to everyone else, when it was Abram, not Hamites, that came up with the arithmetic and to deal with the anatomy, astronomy, all of it. Dealing with the anatomy, how to deal with surgery, all that. Astronomy also, everything. He was able, everything he took up, every iota, any conversation that tell you in Josephus, he was able to show them how to operate with it. See? That still goes back to our father Abram. Abram was a Shemite. He was not a Hamite. And I can't emphasize that enough. The greatest programmer or the greatest deception on earth is when they made us believe that we were not from Shem. Okay? Once you realize that, their whole house of cards come tumbling down. Because that have us point to the people who are claiming to be Shem and saying, well, why have you lied to me? And who are you? If we're Shem, who are you? If we're the people of Abraham, and if we are the people that ruled Egypt, who are you? They don't want you to deal with that. They don't want you to ask those poignant questions that lead you back to understanding that you're the children of light, that you're the God, you're what the Bible called the gods of the earth, which means the judges of the earth. Now, there's more. Let's go to Genesis 15 and 18. Let's get along here.
Genesis chapter 15, verse 18.
Read.
In the same day the Most High made a covenant with Abram.
He made a covenant with Abraham to show you that this land of Egypt, which was promised, which was a part of Eden, which was given to Adam, that covenant was promised even after the flood too. Read.
Saying, unto thy seed have I given this land.
Have I given you this land from what?
From the river of Egypt.
From the river of what?
From the river of Egypt.
I'm going to show you where this is too. Read.
From the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates.
You notice it's linking right into the areas of the four rivers in Genesis. Why? Because it belonged to Adam. So the promises, even though they are future promises, it's the Most High giving back what was rightfully Adam's. Before there was all different nations, there was a region in the earth in which the Most High communicated directly with his people. The further away you get from the region, the more disconnected you become. Captivity have done this to us. The closer you get to the region, the closer you get back to your God and reclaim your power. That's why the Jewish people took Palestine. Right? Starting to click, right? Starting to come together. No, we're gonna turn over every lie concerning Egypt within this lesson. And before this is over, I don't know if they're going to allow this thing to go out. So if you record this and document this, okay, because they'll do everything to try to stop the information we're going to bring forth today. This is going to tear down the concept of Egyptologists fighting against their own people. They created Egyptology so that blacks can fight against blacks. The same reason they've put religion amongst us. You go into Egypt, they know no such concept as Egyptology. They'll tell you, oh, that's some black American thing they created over there to feel like they was connected to something. Okay? There's no such concept in Egypt as Egyptology. But they would rather you go into that, because if you think that you're Ham, then you're not looking to get the promises that was given to you from the beginning. So I'm showing you the regions connected to your fathers. You children of slaves. These things, these land masses belong to you. All right? Now, let's go to Genesis 37 and 28. Now I'm going here to show you, even after Abram, his children went into Egypt and became rulers. Okay? Now, to give you a story in a nutshell, because I can't go through the whole story, when we use Genesis 37 all through the 40th chapters, it goes into how our people went into Egypt and became leaders before there was any such thing as the land of Israel. We're talking about a time period. One moment. We're talking about a time period around what you would call around 1980 BC. Around 1980 BC, right? Joseph, one of the sons of the 12 tribes of Israel, the youngest, who's the father of a lot of the Egyptians today too. But he's the father of Manasseh, which are the Cubans, and he's the father of the Belico Taino Indians, the Puerto Ricans. And a lot of Puerto Ricans and a lot of Cubans don't even know that you have brothers in Egypt that have no part at all with the ancient Egyptians. And they're over there now. Okay? I'm going to go into a story of how we got there. Did we rule Egypt? Let's see. Let's go to Genesis 37 and 28, showing you our rulership in Egypt under Joseph. Read.
Genesis chapter 37, verse 28.
Go ahead.
Then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt.
And they brought Joseph into Egypt. Now, as you know, Ishmael is the father of the Arabs. If you go into the Middle East today, you go into Egypt today, you would think that Egypt belongs to Arabs. There's so many Arabs there. But even before that, Arabs were living in Egypt. Why? Hagar, Sarah's handmaid, the one whom Abraham had a child with, was from Egypt. Hagar was an Egyptian or a Hamite. Now that's showing you right there. When you look at the Arabs, they're lighter, they got long stringy hair. They don't look like black people. So who was the dominant spirit or the dominant color in that relationship? It wasn't her. It wasn't Hagar. It was Abraham, the black man. Then they had Ishmael. And Ishmael still tried to claim parts of Egypt. Why? Because their mother is from Egypt. See? So they bring Joseph down to Egypt, where the real Hamites are ruling now. Go to Genesis 41 and 44. In a nutshell, just so I don't have to go over the whole story, Joseph was given the gifts of dreams, and the Most High would show him things, future tense concerning dreams. And the Most High showed Joseph that he would be greater than his other brothers, yet he was the youngest. You understand? And his brothers got jealous, thought that he was trying to circumvent their positions as being the firstborn, being before him, and they conspired to get rid of him. So instead of killing him and leaving him for dead, they figured that they would just sell him. They didn't want the blood of their brother on him, so they sold him, and eventually that dream would be fulfilled. Now he's going into Egypt, not to become a servant. We're going to show you what the real reason Joseph was sent there for. And this is also an example of if you go to some place and you are subservient or you're on a low estate, that doesn't mean the Most High can't raise you in due time. Joseph is that example. Let's go to Genesis 41 and 44. Let's read that.
Genesis chapter 41, verse 44. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph.
Now, why did Pharaoh say this to Joseph? Pharaoh was having dreams. Okay? And through his dreams, he's seen 7 years of something going bad, or 7 years of plenteous and 7 years of famine. But none of his high sorcerers could interpret the dreams. But this young man Joseph could, and told him, listen, you're going to have 7 years where this whole land is going to be famished. But the Most High is going to give us double for the first 7 years. And through that, you'll feed all of the regions, all the countries around you, and they will become subservient to you. This is how Egypt became a great country. You control the resources, you have power over the people. So when Joseph did this, of course, the Pharaoh, seeing that the Most High God was with this man. I'm going to show you something. Read.
Genesis chapter 41, verse 44. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh.
I am Pharaoh.
And without thee shall no man lift up his head or foot in all the land of Egypt.
See that? So now he's giving Joseph the power of a king for saving Egypt. Read.
Verse 45. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zapanath or Zapnath Paanea. And he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On.
Go ahead.
And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 plenteous years in the earth brought forth the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years, which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up.
Now, give me the scripture where it shows when the Pharaoh gave him the ring. When he took his ring off of his hands. The 42nd verse. That's the key right there. Read.
Genesis chapter 41, verse 42. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck.
Go ahead.
And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, Bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt.
He made him ruler over what?
Over all the land of Egypt.
Made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. See that? So when his brothers came in after years of not seeing him, they couldn't even recognize him because he was dressed like an Egyptian king. Okay? Now, some people would say, well, and this is what the historians lied and say, well, he's not mummified. We can't find him nowhere. Why? Because in scripture it tell you that Joseph's children made a promise to him that if they leave Egypt, to take his bones with them. That's why you cannot find his bones. And who was he in ancient Egypt? The Egyptians called him Imhotep. Under the Hyksos history. Now, I so happen, and for those that are in the academy, they have this information, and some of it will be sent on the full breakdown of the Hyksos. We can't go over it right now, but I'm just going to read the similarities of Joseph and Imhotep. Joseph was second in command under Pharaoh, like we read according to the Bible. Imhotep was second in command under Pharaoh to Joseph. Joseph lived to be 110 years old. Imhotep lived to be 110 years old. Joseph, great architect and builder. Imhotep, great architect and builder. Joseph stored up corn during 7 years of plenty, like I've just read. Imhotep stored up corn during 7 years of plentiness. Joseph saw 7 years of famine and fed the people. Imhotep saw 7 years of famine and fed the people. Joseph was an interpreter of dreams. Imhotep, interpreter of dreams. Joseph built pyramids and palaces. Imhotep built the step pyramid and palaces. Now, when I say the pyramids, a lot of you don't know this. There's many pyramids in Egypt. And there's 2 on the outside of the Great Pyramid, Giza. We know who built that. Joseph is his name. Zaphanath-Paneah over physicians. Imhotep was a physician. Joseph instituted an income tax of 1/5. So did Imhotep. Joseph married, according to scriptures, the priest's daughter of On. So did Imhotep. The knowledge of astrology, which Joseph had. So did Imhotep. Here's the key thing. Imhotep was not a child of the Egyptians. Neither was Joseph. Coat of many colors. Became an educated man. On and on and on. You cannot deny this similarity. So what did they do? They set up a Egyptian historian named Manethos in the 4th century BC, years after ancient Egypt. And the Greeks set him up to skew the timelines and lie on the Israelites that went into Egypt, to call them Hyksos, and to make the time periods not match, so that later on our people in captivity would not be able to relate ourselves as the children, not only of Israel, but the children of Egypt. Okay, I'm talking about the original children of Egypt, not Hamites. How did they do it? Well, the first thing they did, and I'm going to show you how they confused us in our captivity, by doing one of the greatest, what you would call cinematographies of our time with the 10 Commandments. Cecil B. DeMille's 10 Commandments was one of the greatest deceptions that kept our people asleep. First of all, using Charlton Heston as Moses. Second of all, they use this. Let's go to Genesis. Let's go to Exodus 1 real quick to show you something here. I know a lot of you asking, what did this have to do with what's going over there in Egypt right now? You're going to get it.
Genesis chapter 1, verse 10.
Read.
Come on, let us deal wisely with them.
So the Pharaoh said, let us deal wisely with them. Read.
Lest they multiply, and it come to pass, that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies.
Go ahead.
And fight against us. And so get them up out of the land.
So get them up out of the land. And why would the Pharaoh say get them up out of the land? Why? Because we were ruling in Egypt. See? We were ruling. It says get them up out of upper Egypt. And we're going to go into it. Read.
Verse 11. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters.
They set taskmasters over them. I'm going to show you how they was able to slowly put us in captivity. It wasn't overnight. Read.
To afflict them with their burdens.
Sound familiar? Captivity? By the hands of another nation? Sounds familiar, don't it? Read.
And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities.
Treasure cities.
Pithom and Ramses.
Now, what they did with the 10 Commandments, they used this Pithom and Ramesses to say, okay, since they built Pithom and Ramesses, Ramesses must have been the Pharaoh. They lied on purpose, knowing what? That Ramesses' time period of rulership do not equate when Moses was ruling. See that? So they did that to throw the timeline off so that they can make everyone in the future believe that the Exodus never happened. There's no Exodus during the time of Ramesses. Well, the Bible never said we was in captivity under King Ramesses. The Bible says we built temples to King Ramesses. See that? Let's show them who was the king and what's the real king of Egypt and what his name was, so that we can get these time periods on schedule. And I hope a lot of the Egyptologists are looking at this with an insightful and an open mind, because they did this so that you'll never find out that the world belongs to you. Okay? Your existence is greater than Egypt itself. But something is in your spirit that's correct. That's having you cleave to the power and the strength and the knowledge of Egypt. You are correct. That was you. But they were not Hamites. They were the children of Abraham. See? Let's get it out of Jasher real quick to show you Right? I got it all here. One moment. Jasher. You got it?
Mm-hmm.
Read it.
This is the
65,
book of Jasher, chapter 65,
Go ahead.
verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that all the counselors of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and all the elders of Egypt assembled and came before the king.
Let's go before that so we can get his name. Jasher 58. Jasher, the 58th chapter, the book of Jasher, to give brothers and sisters insight of how we became enslaved in Egypt. Read.
This is the book of Jasher, chapter 58.
Let's start at 12.
Verse 12. It says, in all the countries of the Philistines in Canaan and Zidon, and on the other side of Jordan, brought presents unto Joseph all his days.
Go ahead.
And the whole country was in the hand of Joseph.
And the whole country was in the hand of Joseph.
And they brought unto him a yearly tribute as it was regulated. For Joseph had fought against all his surrounding enemies and subdued them. And the whole country was in the hand of Joseph.
And the whole country was in the hand of who?
In the hand of Joseph.
Go ahead.
And Joseph sat securely upon his throne in Egypt. And
So he sat on what?
And Joseph sat securely upon his throne in Egypt.
And Joseph sat securely on his throne in Egypt. See? We ruled Egypt. I'm glad you brought that out there. I'm glad we went back there before we go into this king. And I'm going to show you why the Europeans today don't want you to know it was you. Go down to the 21st verse. I'm going to show you what Joseph did.
Verse 21.
Read.
And Joseph and his brethren in all Egypt were still smiting the people of the house of Esau.
See? See? Joseph was smiting and destroying the people of Esau. So when Esau got control later, the last thing they wanted you to know is that you were the people who was destroying them. See, that breaks the captivity off of you when you realize that at one point, we were destroying them. It wasn't for the Most High taking us down. There's no way Esau could have destroyed us. They don't want you to go into the history and say, okay, here's some black people ruling Egypt, smiting Europeans or, Edomites. So when we fell, they turned history upside down to the point where they make you believe that they were the people there. Anyone that'll believe that don't have no knowledge of history whatsoever. Or they'll say, well, it was Arabs. And I used to wonder why they so inclined to move it to Arabs when you find out they lied about themselves. It can be anybody except you, that's why. And Ishmael is also a culprit in this conspiracy. Ishmael got a problem because Isaac became the child of promise. And Esau have a problem because Jacob became the child of promise. They're in it together. Who is it? The Muslim Brotherhood in Rome. It's coming around now. You see how it links to today in prophecy? This conspiracy could not have happened unless they both worked together to lie on our history. Okay? Now let's go to Genesis. Let's get the name of Margron, the guy that came up, the Pharaoh.
This is Jasher chapter 58. And I'll go back to verse...
Let's get Margron. I think it's...
I'll start at verse 1.
which shows he had a son. Right here. Right here.
The story starts with
And Pharaoh commanded Joseph, right here, the second verse.
It says, and Pharaoh commanded Joseph before his death to be a father to his son.
We're at the 58th verse. So here it is. Joseph became a father to his son. Read.
And Pharaoh commanded Joseph before his death to be a father to his son, Magron, and that Magron should be under the care of Joseph and under his counsel. And all Egypt consented to this thing, that Joseph should be king over them. For all the Egyptians loved Joseph as of heretofore. Only Magron, the son of Pharaoh, sat upon his father's throne, and he became king in those days in his father's stead. Magron was 41 years old when he began to reign, and 40 years he reigned in Egypt. And all Egypt called his name Pharaoh, after the name of his father, as it was their custom to do in Egypt, to every king that reigned over them.
So we know that the Pharaoh wasn't during the regime of Ramesses. It was the regime of Magrons. That takes Ramesses out of the way. Now later on, the Magrons said, let's build a temple to honor Ramesses, a god or an ancient king of Egypt that was reverenced so that they can wipe out the existence of our people who were ruling in Egypt. See, Cecil B. DeMille took that Ramesses word and made everyone believe that it was King Ramesses during the time of Moses. So that when you look at history, you'll say, well, the timeline doesn't fit. Exactly. It don't fit. They did it on purpose. Okay? It wasn't King Ramesses. They lied so that you would believe the historians' teachings that the Exodus really didn't happen. See? Now, one more thing. Let's show them how they was able to enslave us. Let's get the book of Jasher, the 65th chapter.
Jasher chapter 65, verse 1.
Go ahead.
And it came to pass after these things that all the counselors of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and all the elders of Egypt assembled and came before the king and bowed to the ground.
Go ahead.
And they sat before him. And the counselors and elders of Egypt spoke unto the king, saying,
Now these are Hamites who are upset. Why? Because while Joseph was down there, he set up temples of monotheism to worship the God that saved Egypt. And the priests had to take down all their gods, their fallen gods. It's like you walking through the Catholic Church, just knocking down everything. This is what was going on. Okay. And they were totally upset because they was worshiping, a lot of them before Joseph came on the scene, was worshiping Osiris or Azazel at the bottom of that pyramid there. See? Read on.
Verse 3. Behold, the people of the children of Israel is greater and mightier than we are.
Go ahead.
And thou knowest all the evil which they did to us in the road when we returned from battle. And thou hast also seen their strong power. For this power is unto them from their fathers. But a few men stood up against the people numerous as the sand, and smote them as the edge of the sword. And of themselves not one has fallen, so that if they had been numerous, they would then have been utterly destroyed them.
Go ahead.
Verse 5. Now therefore give us counsel what to do with them, until we gradually destroy them from amongst us.
You see that? It was a gradual destruction of our people. Why? If the Egyptians would have went against us all together, we would have banded together and just took them out. And see, and this is another reason they can't come at us now all at once. They have to gradually destroy us or have us agree to our own destruction. Like, yeah, have your child been vaccinated? I like to always throw that in there so that people will know you're being poisoned and killed systematically. Okay? They know if they came together all at once, we would just band together and outnumber them. See? So they break us down in groups and call us minorities so that we'll think we're smaller in number. And they compartmentalize us and they separate all the 12 tribes and destroy them in increments. See, this is how they do it. Same way, the blueprint of Egypt. Read.
Verse 5. Now therefore give us counsel what to do with them.
Give us counsel what to do with them. Go ahead.
Until we gradually destroy them from amongst us.
Until we gradually destroy them. So it was systematic. They just couldn't put rulers of Egypt in captivity. So first of all, they had to make a pretext in which Israel would agree to separate themselves from Upper Egypt. So they had to make it beneficial. So what did they do? They say, we're going to give y'all this area and pay you this amount in gold because we need y'all to oversee something on this side. And that's when they came up with these blueprints to build certain cities. All right. So they bribed Israel out of Upper Egypt. And once we were no longer amongst their consuls, they conspired to destroy us. Through time. Read.
Until we gradually destroy them from amongst us,
See?
lest they become too numerous for us in the land.
See, and this is how your councils that are over government counsel today. This is what they talk about. Let's see the chart. How many of those black weeds have we destroyed, or the poor people? How many have we destroyed yet? Okay, let's put a vaccine program over here, and send Bill Gates over there with some candy, and have you make everybody believe that he's there to dig a well and put a well in Africa, and he'll kill off the people. We'll just say they died of AIDS. See, this is how they do it. Read.
Verse 6. For if the children of Israel should increase in the land,
Because if they continue to multiply,
they will become an obstacle to us.
they will become an obstacle to us.
And if any war should happen to take place, they with their great strength will join our enemy against us.
So here it is, the Egyptians, after we have helped save them through a famine, a king come up that don't know our people and our majesty and our greatness, began to conspire to destroy us. See? Now, we all know the story. Moses. Eventually, they wanted to kill. They got with the midwives in a conspiracy to kill the young men. They tell you in the book of Jasher, they try to throw us in the water at first. Less brutal. Just grab the baby and throw it in the water. What did the Most High do? And they showed a lot of these sci-fi pictures. The Most High had a spirit come up and wrap around them and nurture them and feed them in the water. And then when they got 9 months, the earth would spit the children out, and they come running back to their parents. It tell you that in Jasher, to let you know that all the things, all the ingredients to nurture a person is in the waters. Don't forget, when you were born, you came out of waters. So they tried to do that first. They was throwing the children in the water at firstborn, and then the water which is surround them and give them air. And they was fed under the water, and then when it was time they could walk, months later it would spew them back out of the water, and they would come running to their parents. And the Egyptians were tripped. They couldn't believe it. Like, they're still numbering. It's like, you know what, we must send the sword. Go out and kill those children before they outpopulate us. They're doing that today, brothers and sisters, with their soft kills, with their vaccine program, with their so-called domestic violence program to separate the man from the woman, to empower the woman and have it where man just don't want to be around anymore. Okay? So that they can get to those children. Same program. Throw us in prison where we can't reprocreate. Same program. I can't emphasize that enough. But let's get back into the prophecies now. Here's Moses now. He ended up becoming great in Egypt. Helped Egypt become a great empire. Constructed the tactics against all Egypt's enemies to make Egypt a great country again. And guess what? Yes, he was a black man living amongst dark-skinned people. How do you know this? Let's go to Numbers real quick. Let's get it. Numbers 10 and 12, and let's get it real quick because I don't want to emphasize that over and over, but I just want to show that. Because the greatest conspiracy is them changing the Egyptians into white people. And it was no wonder why you're getting that while Napoleon went to the Sphinx and did this. Oh yeah, let's knock off the nose of the Sphinx. Okay, and you would never guess who the head of the Sphinx is. Imhotep, Joseph. All right. So they like, well, how can we cover a lie when no sooner someone walk into Egypt, there's this big black guy looking at people with a nose this wide. Show it again. See it? And you should see some of these so-called experts on the History Channel. How they articulate theories of how the nose dissipated through time. Or what about the rest of the face? Historians? I mean, the nose was made out of the same thing as the rest of it. Seemed like everything, his ears are intact. His eyes, his mouth, look, his head garment, all that is made of the same thing. What happened with his nose? They try to claim that through time it deteriorated. And you can go there, and I've seen it with my own eyes. You can go there and you can see what they was chiseling up in there. Make you think that it's slowly dissipated. You can see chisel marks where the nose is. Oh, guess who's at the pyramid? Oh, I got this coming too in this lesson. Okay? Well, we're going to hold off on him for 1 minute. All right? We're going to hold off. It's no coincidence at the end time that they have a black president in power. No coincidence. Because no way, shape, or form would Africa unite under George Bush or any other European or Roman. They would only unite if there was hope with a black man at the top. And they're using him as a pretext to destroy us in the wilderness once and for all. And that is what they call AFRICOM. That's what AFRICOM is all about. Don't believe they're there to try to help with water or the AIDS pandemic. There's no AIDS pandemic. They created that to hide, to cover the fact they're destroying us through vaccines and starvation and water deprivation. They've created the eugenics. They created the problems. Okay? They're not there to dig a well and build a church. Now let's get back. Let's go to Numbers.
Numbers 12
and 10. Let's read it.
And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous.
Before that, let's get the one where Moses put his hand in his vesture. Let's get Moses.
It's 4.
Yeah.
There's another one also stated for an Egyptian. I'll get the one in Numbers 4 first.
Yeah, get them all.
Numbers chapter 4, Exodus chapter 4, verse 7.
We're showing you how Moses looked. Read.
Start at verse 6. And the Most High said furthermore unto him, Put now thy hand into thy bosom.
Put thine hand into thine bosom.
And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand became, behold, his hand was leprous as snow.
Hold up. Moses put a black hand into his vesture. How you know it was black? Because when he plucked it back out, it was white as snow. It turning white was the miracle. That was the miracle. So he must have been black. See? Read.
Verse 7. And he said, Put thy hand into thy bosom again.
Put it back, Moses.
And he put his hand into his bosom again.
And he plucked it out in what?
And plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh.
And then Moses looked at his hand like, okay, my hand is back. My color is back. See, out of all the miracles in that fraud, Cecil DeMille's 10 Commandments, all the miracles they showed, they left that one out. Because there's no way Charlton Heston could have put his hand in his vesture and pluck it out and been white and turned white, and that would have been a miracle. Okay? See? You see how they use Hollywood to cast a spell on you so that they can become you? See? Give me something else there.
This is Exodus chapter 2, verse 16.
Read.
Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock.
I have a statement to say too, because they'll look at our lessons. A lot of people look at our lessons and they'll say, well, it's a lot of what the Spirit is bringing is profound. They'll agree and say, man, this is great history. But then you have one, and this is speaking to that one person that'll come and just say, why this thing always got to turn into race? We know that these people are agents. Because you're only making that statement to move the argument from the facts that are being brought forth. The reality is they lied on an entire race. And how can we speak of that or show the truth concerning that if we don't bring the history of the true people forth? So you don't have to deal with guilt on the other thing. We're not putting this out there so you can feel you're not the one that chipped the nose off of the Sphinx, okay? We're not blaming old people. We're just setting the record straight. I got to put that out there. Because you always have that person say, well, it always turned down the race. You know what? The majority of things in this earth is because of race. The turmoils, the war, the destruction, the evil that's going on, it's because of race. And it's because people like that, they don't want to talk about it. They want to ignore it as if it don't exist. So, of course, if we find out that we the Israelites and that everyone have lied on us and there's some people that's claiming to be Jews have taken our identity, of course you're going to look at it like, oh my God, is this racist? Is this racist? Why is it no one is pointing to the racism that have been done against our history? No one looked at Cecil B. DeMille when he made the Ten Commandments and say, this is racist. Okay? No one looked at Mel Gibson in The Passion of the Christ when he had Cesar Borgia starring in the movie. No one looked at Mel Gibson and said, you know what? This is racist. And we're tired of people using that as a political or racial football to get it off the topic of prophecy. The only reason we're showing this is because the prophecies concerning the last days is aimed towards the rise of a particular people that will actually rule the earth. And that the New World Order and the powers that's over the New World Order are looking to exterminate these people before Christ comes. We must awaken those particular people. Okay? We must awaken them. We must warn them against the enemy who's looking to destroy them. All right? I want to put that in proper perspective. Get the next scripture here. Go ahead.
This is Exodus 2:16.
Go ahead.
Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters.
Go ahead.
And they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flocks.
Go ahead.
And when they came to Reuel their father, he said, how is it that ye are come so soon today? Verse 19. And they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds.
They said what?
An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds.
So there was others in Midian who mistake Moses for an Egyptian, but he wasn't Egyptian at all. See? And now this was before modern Egypt, which was afterwards, years later, conquered under the Greeks with the Ptolemies. They would have you point to Cleopatra and Mark Antony as ancient Egypt. That's after the Europeans and came over and took it down. And had an influx of Grecian migrants into Egypt and named it Alexandria. And it so happened they named the land that belonged to us, Goshen, Alexandria. So modern day historians would point you towards that time of history in the Ptolemies when the Greeks put Europeans there and say, well, listen, the Egyptians were always white. They're playing on your ignorance. Okay? Now, that's it on that. That's enough. Let's get Paul real quick, since we're on this. Just to
Acts 21.
yeah, just to show you how this thing flows all the way to the New Testament.
You don't mind also, I've got something else on that.
Okay, come, bring me everything you got, brother.
All right.
Let's go.
This is Acts chapter.
Let's go.
This is Acts 21 and 37.
Go ahead.
And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, may I speak unto thee?
Go ahead.
Who said, canst thou speak Greek?
Can thou speak Greek?
Are not
Greek.
thou that Egyptian?
Are not thou that what?
That Egyptian?
So even Paul was mistaken for an Egyptian.
Mhm.
Okay? These are all black people, folks. If he was European, he would not have been mistaken for an Egyptian. So I don't know what you're looking at the Catholic Church, but that's not Paul. Okay? What else you have?
This is Josephus against Apion, showing how the Greeks back then tried to play as if they were the Egyptians and other dark races.
Read it.
This is Josephus against Apion, book 1, paragraph 2. I'll start at verse 6. It says, "And now in the first place I cannot but greatly wonder at these men, or those men, who suppose that we must attend to none but the Grecians, when we are inquiring about the most ancient facts, and must inform ourselves of their truth from them only, while we must not believe ourselves nor other men. For I am convinced that that very reverse is the truth of the much case." So basically he's saying that during that time, it was promoted as if the Grecians only had the truth about ancient facts, and that you can only believe the Greeks.
And you notice the majority of historians in history today concerning ancient times always go back to Greek philosophers. They try to hold them up as the example of true history. When they created history, they created their own history based on the fact that if you look at ancient history, you would just write them out of the canon. Okay, because the Greeks came later. How can they be the authority of ancient history when they came late? See? Read.
I'm going to jump down to verse 8. It says, "However, they acknowledged themselves so far," speaking about the Greeks,
Go ahead.
"that they were the Egyptians, the Chaldeans."
So the Greeks have convinced themselves that they are the Egyptians now. Go ahead.
It says, "However, they acknowledged themselves so far that they were the Egyptians, the Chaldeans, and the Phoenicians. For I will not now reckon ourselves among them, that have preserved the memorial of this ancient and most known and most lasting tradition of mankind."
That means, how can you be you and everyone else too? Impossible. Impossible. All right? They skewed history and lie on history, and then they have this politically correct agenda that they use through media, that if you bring it up, you're a racist. Oh, I'm just mentioning that you whitewashed all the images of Christ and the disciples. Oh, you racist. Well, what about the guy with the white paint on his brush? Was he racist? Who paid him? What was their agenda? You see, they just put that racist term out there so that you can have a race argument instead of getting to the bottom of things. Okay? Now, back to prophecy. Before we go there, let us show in Jeremiah other times we went into Egypt. Just real quick, because we are about to end it with Isaiah, the 19th chapter. We are living in Isaiah 19 as we speak.
Jeremiah chapter 44, verse 1.
Go ahead.
"The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the Jews which dwelled in the land of Egypt."
That dwelled where?
In the land of Egypt.
In the land of where?
In the land of Egypt.
Read.
"Which dwelled at Migdol, and at Tapanhes, and at Noth, and at the country, or in the country of Pathros, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, ye have seen all the evil that I have brought upon Jerusalem, and upon all the cities of Judah. And behold, this day they are a desolation, and no man dwelt therein."
So as you can see, even during the old time, there were cities in which our people went into in ancient Egypt. Now, when we went into cities, it's not like we reprocreated or operated as an Egyptian or amongst the Egyptians or mixed with them and all that like you think. The same way when you went to America, you were in your own ghettos. You were in your own area. You got your own culture. All right? So when we were there, we were having children and all that. And a lot of the remnant of those people in Egypt, a lot of them on Manasseh and Ephraim in certain cities. And a lot of them, some of them are Jews too. Matter of fact, when I went there, there was a brother there that was from Egypt that was taking pictures. He looked like he was raised around the corner from me in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the United States. And he had a long history of his people being from Egypt. Okay? And you'll never understand this unless you get outside of your bubble and your programming. They make you believe that everyone in the Middle East look like Arabs. They make you believe that everyone in Europe are white. Mm-hmm. You understand this is the programming they've put you under. Now, more. Before I get the last piece, let's get Christ and see if there was a place for him when he was born. Where did he go? Now, I don't went from Adam all the way to Christ concerning Egypt. Let's go to Genesis. Let's go to Matthew, the 2nd chapter. Then after that, we're going to pause this, make sure we have this locked in, and then get the second part. Egypt, past, present, and future. Let's go.
St. Matthew chapter 2, verse 1. Now when Yeshua was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east.
The King of the Jews, not the King of the Egyptians now, King of Jews. Now, I need you to go straight down concerning the child, our Savior. And let's start at the 13th verse. Read 13 through 15 real quick.
Verse 13 through 15. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt.
And flee into where?
And flee into Egypt.
Now, why would the angel tell him to go into Egypt if there wasn't people there? And we're showing you in the Old Testament, our people were always in Egypt. It was always a place for refuge from the enemy. And there's ghettos, there's neighborhoods, our people are in Egypt exponentially. And another thing I've noticed is that when the children that are born over in Egypt and all that, they don't go through none of that, the vaccine program and all that, none of that stuff is forced on them. None of that. Strong, vibrant children. Read on.
It says, And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt.
Go ahead.
And be thou there until I bring thee word.
Go ahead.
For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him.
Because Herod, an Edomite, that was a white man, that had a decree to kill Christ. And I have to emphasize that because the Idumeans were in a perpetual war against us. Herod was the first Edomite to be a governor over a black country, Israel. See, he was Roman. Matter of fact, his bloodline linked directly to the British family today. Herod's line linked directly to the Bushes today. And guess what? His bloodline links directly to Barack Obama's mother. Okay? Now, our Lord and Savior had to go into Egypt, proving you there was always havens for God's people there. You want to know why it's the center of international attention right now? We're going to show you why. We're going to show you exactly why it's the center of attention. And why Barack Obama is totally upset and the Western world is totally upset that they didn't throw their lapdog Marcy of the Muslim Brotherhood out of there. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you. We're going to Isaiah 19, but let me save this portion of the video first.